I'm an 8th grade educated person, basically one of the most hated people in the world. AOL spent $11 million last year to stop me.
Meet Ronnie Skelson, who's proud to admit that he sends out 100 million pieces of spam a day.
It's a big thing right now. I've been doing this for years. All of a sudden in the last 6 months, it's been a major, big thing.
The story begins in 1971.
At first, there wasn't much to do on the ARPANET beyond transferring data files among its members. But then, a new capability was added. The first killer application that would bring in the masses and take the usefulness of computer networking to a new level. That killer app was email.
So in 1971, Ray Tomlinson, this man, sent the first ever email. He actually figured out how to do it in his own time, just because he thought it was an interesting thing that should be done. And in the process, he invented the iconic @ symbol. However, it was not for another 7 years that a man named Gary would open Pandora's box of cold email. On the 3rd of May 1978, Gary Thirk sent the first ever cold email. He obtained a list of ARPANET email addresses and instructed one of the engineers to send a message to all of them at once, essentially the first ever bulk email. So many addresses were added that they were overflowing into the message body itself, as you can see here. And although people were not very impressed with the move, and his boss made him promise never to do it again, it ultimately resulted in $13 million in sales, and the cat of cold email marketing was well and truly out of the bag.
How much do you think this advanced operating environment is worth? Wait just 1 minute before you ask.
Online is making it easier for people to live, work, and play.
By the 1990s, email was not just for researchers and corporations. Platforms like AOL and Hotmail brought it to the masses, and marketers saw an opportunity.
You've got mail.
This summer, the internet will reach a dubious milestone. Half of all email will be spam, junk email. Pitches for everything from get-rich-quick schemes to black market Viagra. The amount of spam has doubled in the last year. Businesses are spending $10 billion a year to weed out the good email from the bad.
With the volume of spam getting so out of control, two things started to happen. Firstly, regulation was starting to be introduced in the US, namely the CAN-SPAM Act.
2003 may go down in history as the year America started to fight back, the CAN-SPAM Act.
Well, the CAN-SPAM Act is basically about empowering the consumer, making sure the consumer can say that they don't want to receive this material, and then stiff penalties for misrepresentation. I mean, people have got to identify themselves, and they can't use all these dodges and ruses to get around it.
Another thing that started to happen was the providers, the software providers that were providing this mail service, were aware of the problem and aware that the user experience was turned to crap. So they started to build out the first set of spam filters.
So Microsoft, America Online, and Yahoo are collaborating on a new email standard that makes it harder to fake your return address. New spam catching technologies are in the works too. Brightmail CEO Enrique Salem.
One of the big things that's going to happen is that you'll be able to identify bulk mail, and we'll be able to compare mail messages that are being sent to AOL, Yahoo, Microsoft. And if it's the same message, then we will know if it's not sent by a legitimate sender, it should be set aside, deleted, or put in a bulk folder.
With a combination of both legislation coming into force and spam filters getting better and better, all of the bad actors, or a lot of the bad actors who were scamming people essentially, were kicked out. And what this meant was those people who were providing things of value won. That wasn't super easy because it was hard to get data and it was hard to do this at scale. But those people made lots of money, and that's what we'd call the first golden age of cold email. And this lasted for quite a while. Essentially what happened is innovation got introduced into the space where you could find data more easily, you could email at scale more easily, and that meant more people got into the space.
Was cold emailing like...
I'm going to be talking about email deliverability.
All right, so outbound being like you're actively reaching out to people.
And it got more competitive, and younger people got into the space. And what that meant was that innovation kept happening. And so now things got easier and easier and easier and easier. And over the years, and especially in the last couple of years, it's really accelerated. the amount of cold email going out has increased. And so people start to receive stimulus fatigue, right? Essentially, they've seen a lot of it, so now it doesn't really mean anything to them, or they associate it with bad experiences in the past, so it no longer works, all right? So that was the first golden age of cold email.
So what's wrong with a little junk email?
With many things in life, cold email is not binary. There isn't spam email and not spam email. There's a spectrum, and cold email falls somewhere along that spectrum. This is also why Google and Microsoft decide if something is spam, essentially based on if the receiver marks it as spam. At one end of the spectrum, we've got unsolicited emails where the intention is to scam people out of money, let's say, like the Prince of Nigeria scheme or whatever main sort of scams come to mind. On the other end of the spectrum, you could be emailing a company cold if they've got space for an intern. And I don't see any moral issue with doing this. And arguably, email is like the most appropriate form of communication if you had this question, right? So what about if you're offering to give a company free coffee beans because you're the cafe down the road? Right? So there's some sort of sale that you're intending to make from them, but I don't think it's a spam email. What if you are the cafe down the road and you're asking if they want to come in and use your space for their Christmas party? Again, it's unsolicited and you're probably trying to make a sale, but again, it's probably not spam. So what if you're a cafe chain and you're emailing everybody in the city? Or what if you're asking them to pay? What if what you're offering is free? So all these things kind of move where the email falls on the spectrum. And this issue that we're talking about here has always been an issue, right? This was an issue way back in 2003 when they were legislating the Canned Spam Act.
So why don't we just outlaw unsolicited commercial email? Part of the reason is not everyone agrees on what spam is.
Spam is a bit like pornography. We know how to recognize it, but we don't know exactly how to describe it.
You may think spam is anything in your inbox that you didn't ask for, but Bob Winson disagrees.
We think that spam is essentially email that misrepresents an offer or misrepresents the originator or in some way attempts to confuse or defraud people.
He's the CEO of the Direct Marketing Association, a group that says there's a difference between spam and good, honest pitches.
The reality is that in spite of all the trouble that email is causing Americans and people all over the world, in fact, a lot of people do respond to email offers, and they often respond to offers for things they didn't even know existed, from people they didn't know existed.
And as a direct response marketer, I obviously agree. We've booked over 1,000 discovery calls in the last 3 months for B2B businesses, and the prospects agreed to the call because they saw value in what was being offered. And really through the process of making this video, I've narrowed it down to the question of value. Does your email provide value to the person who receives it? Now, this means two things. You have to offer something of value. It has to be actually valuable, so you can't bait and switch. Like you say you're offering this, but it's actually something else. You say it's free, but you actually have to pay, right? Even if the email is of value, but it's a lie, it's not really of value. And two, you have to build a robust and accurate lead list, right? Like the people you're emailing have to be the people that would receive value from this email. If it is of value, but it's going to the wrong person, it's now spam, right? In my opinion. So here is the wonderful thing, right? So spam filters with the introduction of AI are getting better and better at identifying if the email is spam or not, meaning if the person receiving the email wants to receive this email. And that means that all of the bad players, essentially, they're not going to do very well because let's say they're not scraping their lead list properly, or they're not crafting messages that are actual value because they haven't done market research and talked to their market and figure out what's actually value to them. So all those people, they will move on to the next thing, which is perfect because what that means is the stimulus fatigue will start to go down, and the people that know how to craft a valuable email to the people and craft a list where that will be valuable will end up winning. And what I think this will do is I think this will hail in a second golden age of cold email. So hopefully you got some value out of this video. If you have any questions, please leave them down below, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Peace.